You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they come into us. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with political journalists Theo Usherwood and Alicia Fitzgerald. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, the Mirror leads with former Labour leader Neil Kinnock calling for the two-child benefit cap to be scrapped, warning it's driving more children into poverty. The Sunday People reports on claims Donald Trump was outplayed by Vladimir Putin at their Alaska summit. The Mail says Ukraine's president was caught between US and Russian power plays. The headline, Zelensky trapped in Trump and Putin's vice. The Telegraph too leads with claims President Trump backs Putin's land grab by offering Ukraine security guarantees in exchange for surrendering Donetsk. The Times also covers the summit, reporting President Zelensky will head to the White House on Monday after President Putin named a part of East Ukraine as his price for peace. The Sunday Express, meanwhile, warns Britain and Europe are in grave danger if the West concedes too much to Russia. The Sun writes the BBC has called in police to investigate a Strictly Come Dancing scandal. And the Daily Star reports on drunken seagulls causing chaos by stealing drinks and attacking bin men in parks. And tonight we are joined by Theo Usherwood and Alicia Fitzgerald to take us through the papers. Welcome to you both. We're starting with the Sunday Telegraph and obviously the summit in Alaska overnight. Trump supports Putin's land grab. That's the headline in the Sunday Telegraph, and certainly much of the commentary today in the papers has been that's exactly what the outcome of the summit was.
Yes,
Theo.
Good evening. The Sunday Telegraph has the clearest right-through breakdown of exactly what came out of that summit on its front page for tomorrow. Trump supports Putin land grab, and what the paper's saying is that Ukraine must surrender Donetsk, which is, of course, one of its most mineral-rich parts of eastern Ukraine, including, the paper reports, territory that actually Vladimir Putin's military hasn't yet won. So this will include, obviously, territory that is under Russian control currently, as well as other territory that is actually under Ukrainian control. The paper reports that Zelensky, as we know, is going to the White House on Monday, and there's a possibility that Keir Starmer will be one of those European leaders to join the Ukrainian president to hear exactly what Donald Trump has to say. There is, of course, a realistic fear that, given what President Zelensky said in the past about not being prepared to cede any land to Russia, that there might be a repeat of what happened back at the turn of the year when he was pincered by both Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, the vice president, for taking too much of a recalcitrant tone, according to the US administration. So it's going to be fascinating to see how the next 48 hours plays out.
No, indeed. And Alicia, seemingly it's really playing out that President Trump, at least, is putting the ball back in the court of Zelensky and really saying that, peace depends on his response.
Absolutely, but he may be putting it back in the ball of Zelensky, but totally against all of the terms that Zelensky has set out for a potential peace deal to go ahead. I mean, this was a meeting between Trump and Putin where we were promised before that the end goal would be a ceasefire, and Trump even said himself that if that deal was not reached during that meeting, there would be serious consequences for Russia. Instead, we've come out of this meeting, Vladimir Putin has been able to re-access the global stage where he's been largely ostracised from for a few years now. And not only that, but it seems to be that Trump is supporting his demand for some land concessions. So it seems here that even though the ball might be going back to Ukraine, they still do appear to be the losers in Zelensky's eyes. I think it'd be very difficult, this meeting that's coming up, for Zelensky to turn around and say that he's fine with this concession. I think it's really unlikely that that will happen. We know that Vladimir Putin has his eyes on Ukraine being under Russian control again. We know that's his aim. And we also know that really what Putin wants is to establish a force in Russia that's similar to that of the Soviet Union. And by tackling Ukraine, that's the way in which he can do that. But I mean, this is definitely a really really scary moment for Ukraine and for the future of this conflict.
And Trump sort of backtracking, actually, he's changed his stance several times and saying that this first summit was really to get a trilateral meeting. So that it was a point at which that would be set up. So that's what he was saying about it.
And he pivoted, didn't he, from saying, at the beginning of the meeting, as they arrived in Anchorage, saying, I want a ceasefire. Now he's pivoting to a much, arguing that there's the chance now for a much longer term peace, and might as well just go straight for that.
Well, he's diminishing the ceasefire now, saying, we're not working to a mere ceasefire.
We can try and get. So the goalposts are always shifting, but I think without. It's possible not to be too negative about the meeting that took place in Alaska. There is, the mood music coming out, from Number 10 over the course of the last 24 hours, and from Zelensky is that, from the office of the Ukrainian president, is that actually there has been some, American, they are backing the need for proper security guarantees, and of course the fear in Europe, right across from Britain, France, and others, is that. And of course, for Zelensky, is that Vladimir Putin goes away, he licks his wounds, he rearms his military, he takes stock, and then he goes again, either at Ukraine or possibly another country, a NATO member, on Europe's eastern flank. And from what appears to have been set out yesterday, there does seem to have been some, and we'll have to wait for more details to come out, but some much more significant security guarantees that go beyond what Trump was previously arguing, where he said, we'll do a deal on rare earths and we'll have American contractors operating in Ukraine, and Russia wouldn't dare attack those contractors, because that would mean all-out war.
Alicia, just in terms of Trump saying, seemingly giving some more security guarantees, that's not entirely what he said previously. Again, changing his tone. Again, suggesting that just by mere fact of being in Ukraine, that would be a security guarantee.
Of course, and I mean, we still have no real clarity about what exactly was discussed in this meeting either. I mean, they held a supposed press conference afterwards where journalists weren't allowed to ask questions. And I mean, from personal experience of a press conference, that makes for a very boring one, because the whole purpose is that press are there to actually find out what was discussed. So it's still very cards close to their chest. And I'm sure more will come out, especially after this next meeting that we have that obviously involves Volodymyr Zelensky. But I do think that really Trump's changing his mind every single time after the outcome doesn't really reach what he'd hoped it had is something that we've seen a pattern of. I mean, before he took office, he said that he was going to end this war within 24 hours. That didn't happen. The hurdle seems to move a little bit further every single time that it doesn't quite work. And I just wonder how long people's tolerance for that will last.
And just very quickly before we move on, what did you both make of the summit? Were you able to glean who had the upper hand? I mean, I thought it was very strange that Putin opened the summit and spoke first, that he rode in the beast with President Trump. All of these things made Donald Trump seem to be on the back foot.
From watching it, I mean, it was everything that Vladimir Putin could have wished for. 5 years ago, Russia was nowhere, and he's launched this military campaign against Ukraine. It looked as if it was going to backfire spectacularly in 2022, when, of course, Russia just did not make the headway that had been hoped, and the Ukrainian resistance was phenomenal. But now he finds himself with the red carpet, literally, in Alaska, being greeted and feted by Donald Trump. And I heard one aside when it came to Zelensky was that, if you're not in the room, then you're on the menu, and that's got to be the fear for Ukraine now.
OK, Alicia, take us to the Sunday Telegraph and this story regarding shoplifters and some advice from the police. This is at Lancashire Constabulary, saying that businesses should have greeters to say hello to customers as a way of a deterrent to shoplifters. I don't quite see the logic there, but
I mean, quite an interesting headline for sure. I mean, this is part of a wider conversation we're having at the moment about tackling, inverted commas, petty crime. And there's a really interesting statistic recently to say that the UK's crime levels are actually a lot lower than they were in the 90s. But the reason being that it's these small invisible crimes like shoplifting have actually risen since that time. And those are the things that actually influence public perception, which is why we're all talking about it a little bit more. This particular a bit of advice from the police has said that a good way to tackle it would be to have what they call greeters at the door of supermarkets where they say hello to customers. And the logic behind it is to say that, one, it creates a friendly environment, not a hostile one inside the shop, which maybe would deter someone from wanting to do something bad. And secondly, it adds a level of human recognition, I suppose, to somebody who's thinking about doing something against the rules. It shows that you've been acknowledged, someone knows that you're present and someone knows that you're in the room. I think this one will definitely spark a bit of an interesting conversation. I think lots of people won't be too happy about this one.
Well, yeah, it could be deemed to be welcoming.
Well, exactly.
Come in here, we're really nice. Just got time to go back to the Mirror. Theo, take us into this story. Neil Kinnock, erstwhile leader of the Labour Party, firmly stepping back into the political arena.
He's demanded it before. The premise of what Lord Kinnock is saying is that there needs to be a wealth tax, and that will pay to lift the two-child benefit cap. Unfortunately for Labour MPs, this boat's really sailed. I mean, there was a window of opportunity where you could have seen this happening before, of course, they voted down or they rebelled against Rachel Reeves's welfare cuts of £5 billion a year. There just isn't the money. She's got a £50 billion black hole, and this demand from Lord Kinnock, I have a feeling, is just going to fall on deaf ears in the Treasury and number 10. There simply isn't the money as we head into the budget. We're looking at tax rises very similar to what we saw last year, and this would be a move that would cost £3.5 billion a year. And it might sound slightly unfair to say it, but Labour MPs really only have themselves to blame. Had they accepted the welfare cuts, had they supported Rachel Reeves, then perhaps this might have found its way onto their Christmas list. But it's not going to happen, and families with the poorest families are going to lose out.
Alyssa, do you agree that this is going nowhere?
I mean, I think it's really unlikely, given that when Keir Starmer entered office, he actually suspended a handful of MPs for voting in favour of scrapping this particular policy. So I think it would be, I mean, although he is partial to a U-turn, so we're not going to rule it out totally, I do think this is something that would be really out of character for him to suddenly change his mind on. It's more of a left-leaning policy, something that he's shown he's not massively keen to pursue, so I don't expect it to happen.
OK, Alicia and Theo, thank you very much for the moment. We're going to take a break. Coming up, we'll be discussing on the Labour's new attack, and the ad says Farage backs Andrew Tate. The fallout from that, we'll discuss it all next. Do so with us.
A lifeline for millions of people living on both sides of one of the most volatile international borders.
It's dams like these that have become inflection points between the two nuclear-armed neighbours, which could potentially lead to water wars in the future. A terror attack has shattered the peace and tranquility of Kashmir. At least 26 people have been killed and as many injured when militants fired upon them. I'm Neville Lazarus, and I'm Sky's reporter based in Delhi.
The old and young, all weary after being trapped for days as the worst floods have hit Kerala in a century.
3 days we are on a rooftop. They have no food, nothing.
The roads have been inundated. The only way out is to get people by boat. There have been reported deaths and many injuries, several critical.
Many families will grapple with the unimaginable loss of one of the worst disasters in India's aviation history.
The spiraling violence between two nuclear-armed neighbours that harbour decades of hostility just seems to be getting worse by the day.
Garbage dumps like this not only threaten the lives of millions of people, but also pose a deadly consequence on the environment and climate.
It is a source of death, decay, disease and pollution for hundreds of thousands of people living in its shadows.
There is so much disease because of this garbage. Sometimes it's so difficult to just breathe.
Companies like these are helping India in its trajectory to be a serious player in space exploration. Over the next 45 days, an estimate 400 million Hindu pilgrims are expected to converge here in Prayagraj on the banks of the holy river Ganga and Yamuna. It's a real kaleidoscope of people from all walks of life.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos and analysis.
Evidence of the crisis.
Podcasts, watching us live.
I'm live in Jerusalem.
Wherever you get your podcast.
All in one place and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
Our app gives you the very best of Sky News wherever you are. Breaking news, videos, analysis, up at 6%. Podcasts, watching us live.
Joins us live.
All in one place, and all at just the touch of a screen. The Sky News app. Get the full story first.
I'm David Blevins, and I'm Sky's senior Ireland correspondent. I've spent 30 years reporting the journey from conflict to peace. The end of the political stalemate, the start of a new chapter for Northern Ireland. Catholics and Protestants now facing the same threat.
If we both contract COVID-19, religion's nothing.
Sky News, the full story first.
Welcome back. You are watching the press preview. Still with me, political journalist Theo Usherwood and Alicia Fitzgerald. Let's take a look at the Times front page. First of all, actually, no, not front page, inside the Times, page 2, in fact. The headline there, Russell Group is putting smaller campuses at risk. Explain this story, Theo.
So this is a piece of data journalism by the Sunday Times, and then they've combined that with an interview they've done with Professor Graham Galbraith of the University of Portsmouth. And basically the argument is that, and this was borne out by the data, is that as the number of foreign students have declined due to visa restrictions, Russell Group universities, of course, those are the best universities outside of Oxford and Cambridge, have been offering more places to more students, and that's put pressure on the much smaller universities outside of the Russell Group in towns, cities outside of, up and down the country, but which host, of course, or home to less prestigious institutions. And the argument from Professor Galbraith is quite interesting, is that obviously that's great for the Russell Group universities. They can get more students in and they can fund their institutions that way through the fees that they pay. But in longer term, it's going to be much more problematic, because as fees go up, particularly those charged by the Russell Group, and if you're looking ahead to actually there's going to be a decline in the number of 18-year-olds going to university in the future, you could end up with local institutions shutting their doors because they simply can't get the students. And then when the fees go up and you look at 10, 15 years down the line, it's going to be very difficult for people to attend university close to where they live.
Alyssa, is it feasible, though, to curtail the expansion of Russell Group universities?
Well, I think the trouble is that the reason they are having to expand is because of a government policy that was put there in the first place. This is, of course, the migration policy that the government put in place to basically limit the amount of foreign students who came to the UK to keep that migration figure down. That saw a 44% decrease in overseas student visa applications in the first quarter of the year, just after that policy was announced. So this has had a huge impact on universities, lots of which rely totally on international students for their funds. Of course, international students pay higher fees as well. That's an important thing to remember. So in order to kind of make that balance up, you're going to have to open all of these spaces. I mean, that simply is a logical thing to do and does make sense. So it seems that these two things are slightly at loggerheads here, because it's kind of a government policy has caused it, and now people are going to say that the outcome of that policy is not what they desired. So I think this requires a bit more of a holistic look at the university system and how it works to maybe try and make this work.
Theo, take us to the front page of the Times, and Labour ad links Farage to Tate. This is a Labour attack ad, it's been described as, and they're saying that Nigel Farage has supported the social media influencer Andrew Tate.
Yes, it's an interesting one. There's obviously they've gone back into the Labour HQ have gone back into the sort of files that they've collated about Nigel Farage and his support for people like Andrew Tate, and they've made this argument that, of course, perfectly legitimately, that he's supported Andrew Tate previously, and they've got a photograph inside on Mr Farage and the social media influence, and of course we know the horrendous comments and remarks and indeed criminality, which is currently at the door of Andrew Tate. I think politically this is quite interesting in that Labour and spot an opportunity, a weakness in reform, and they are making no bones about going for it, and that is that Mr Farage does not has previously and is polling badly with women. In particular, with families, and whilst he might do well with men of an older generation, there is clearly an opportunity here to increase the ferocity of attacks on Nigel Farage and Reform UK. And we saw previously there were comments by Peter Kyle, the Science Secretary, Science Minister, who was making the argument about Mr Farage when it came to supporting or voting down the online safety legislation, and how that would have given a green light to, made the comments on Sky News, didn't he, to Jimmy Savile to perpetrate his crimes if he was alive today. And this is something I think we're going to see more of in the coming weeks, months, and certainly as we head towards the general election.
Okay, Theo and Alicia, thank you very much.